All right, so today we're going deep on something pretty unsettling. We're diving into Operation Triangulation, a story that just might make you rethink that secure iPhone in your pocket. Just picture this. You open a seemingly harmless message and bam, your iPhone's secretly hijacked. Every move, tracked data siphoned off. It's like something out of a digital nightmare.
Yeah, it's definitely a chilling scenario, and unfortunately not fiction. Kaspersky researchers uncovered this sophisticated cyber espionage campaign last year, and it targeted iPhones specifically, possibly as far back as 2019.
Wow, so we're not just talking about your typical phishing scam here. This was highly targeted, and it was aimed at some pretty high-profile individuals in Russia, like government officials and diplomats. What exactly were they after?
Espionage and data theft, basically. Complete access is what they were going for. Think of messages, passwords, conversations, even location tracking,
Yeah.
all compromised without the user ever suspecting a thing.
Geez. It's like a digital ghost, silently recording your every move. But what I find really intriguing is how this attack actually worked. It wasn't some blatant hack. It was all about stealth and precision.
Absolutely. It all starts with a seemingly innocent iMessage. The trick is a watch face attachment. That, when opened, triggers Safari to load malicious components. All of this happens behind the scenes, invisible to the user.
So you're telling me a simple message attachment, that's all it takes to potentially compromise an iPhone. That's pretty unsettling. How does a .face file even allow for that kind of access?
Well, it's not just about the file itself, it's what happens next. A validator script kicks in, almost like a digital scout, assessing the device and determining whether it's a worthy target for full infection. If it gets the green light, things get even more interesting.
Okay, so let's talk about the technical wizardry involved here. How do they actually break into the iPhone's defenses? I know you mentioned something about zero-day vulnerabilities.
Right, that's the heart of it. The attackers exploited not one, but 4 zero-day vulnerabilities. At the time of the attack, that means Apple was completely unaware of these weaknesses, making them incredibly difficult to defend against. 2 of these vulnerabilities were in the iOS kernel itself. Think of it as the operating system's brain. And 2 were in WebKit, the engine that powers Safari.
Gotcha. So exploiting these vulnerabilities basically gave the attackers a skeleton key to the iPhone's inner sanctum, bypassing all its security measures.
Exactly. They essentially gained root access,
Uh-huh.
which is the highest level of privilege on the device. And once they were in there, they deployed their secret weapon, the Triangle DB implant.
Okay, let's talk about Triangle DB. It sounds pretty ominous. What exactly does this implant do?
It's essentially a modular spy tool, like a Swiss Army knife for digital espionage. You can download additional modules, expanding its capabilities on the fly. Think of it as a constantly evolving threat, adapting to whatever the attackers need.
So they're not just grabbing your data. They can add new spying features as they please. That's like something out of a spy movie. What kind of things could this Triangle DB implant do once it was on an iPhone?
Well, we know that it could record audio from the microphone, even when the phone was in airplane mode. That's pretty unsettling, right?
That's definitely putting it mildly. It's like someone planted a bug in your pocket that never sleeps. Were they able to access anything else on the iPhone?
They also targeted conversations from popular messaging apps, like WhatsApp and Telegram.
So they had access to pretty much everything, conversations, locations, maybe even financial data. But what I still don't get is how they managed to bypass the iPhone's hardware security. You mentioned a hidden hardware feature. What's the story there?
Yeah, that's where things get even more fascinating and a bit unsettling. Kaspersky's investigation revealed something truly unexpected. The attackers were writing data to specific physical addresses in the iPhone's memory. Imagine a house with locked rooms. But the attackers found a way to teleport directly into those rooms, bypassing the locks altogether.
I see. So I'm starting to see why this is such a big deal. It's not just about software vulnerabilities anymore. This is about a potential weakness in the hardware itself.
Exactly. They achieved this by using undocumented hardware registers on the chip. These registers are like hidden switches that control very specific functions of the hardware.
Okay, hold on. If these registers are undocumented, how did the attackers even know they existed, let alone how to use them? It's like finding a secret passage in your house that you never knew was there.
That's the million-dollar question, and one that's still puzzling researchers. It's possible this hidden hardware feature was intended for debugging or testing purposes by Apple engineers. But somehow this knowledge leaked out. Another theory is that it was discovered through meticulous reverse engineering of the iPhone's hardware.
Wow, so it's like a master key hidden under the welcome mat that anyone could find if they knew where to look. And to make matters worse, you said this hidden feature was also found on Apple's M1 chips, the ones used in Macs, right?
That's right. Kaspersky's researchers confirmed its presence on M1 chips as well, potentially expanding the scope of this vulnerability to millions of Apple devices. It's a reminder that even the most secure systems can have weaknesses that we might not even be aware of.
Yeah, for sure. This whole thing raises so many questions. What did Apple do to fix this? Did they just patch the specific vulnerabilities? Or did they address this hidden hardware issue as well?
Well, they definitely patched the vulnerabilities that were exploited in Operation Triangulation.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the hidden hardware feature,
Hmm.
it's a bit more opaque. Apple has obfuscated their fix, meaning they've essentially hidden the details of how they've mitigated the issue.
So they've plugged the hole,
Yeah.
but we don't know exactly how. It's like fixing a leak in your house, but not telling anyone where the leak was or how you patched it up.
Yeah, that's a valid analogy.
Yeah.
And it raises questions about transparency and the balance between security and accessibility. Should Apple be more open about these kinds of issues? Or does that risk making their devices more vulnerable? It's a tough call.
It definitely adds another layer of complexity to this whole story. But beyond the technical aspects, this attack also had some significant geopolitical fallout.
You're right. Russia's FSB accused Apple of collaborating with the NSA on this espionage campaign. A pretty serious accusation. Of course, Apple has vehemently denied any involvement.
Yeah, this situation really highlights how cybersecurity can become entangled with international relations when you have attacks of this sophistication, especially those targeting high-profile individuals. The stakes go way beyond data theft. It's like a digital Cold War playing out in the shadows.
It's a reminder that cybersecurity is not just a technical issue, it's also a geopolitical one. And in a world where technology is playing an increasingly important role in our lives, we can expect to see these kinds of intersections more and more often.
Okay, so let's bring it back to our listeners. This has been a pretty wild ride so far. What are the key takeaways for someone who might be concerned about their own iPhone security after hearing all of this?
Well, the first and most important takeaway is awareness. Don't assume that your devices are impenetrable. Stay informed about potential threats and vulnerabilities.
Right, knowledge is power, but what about practical steps? What can people actually do to protect themselves from this kind of sophisticated attack?
One of the simplest yet most effective things you can do is enable automatic updates for your operating system and apps. This ensures you have the latest security patches. And be vigilant about any unusual behavior on your device. Unexplained battery drains, suspicious network connections, anything that seems out of the ordinary. Don't just dismiss it. Investigate.
So it's about being proactive, not just reactive. So we've covered a lot of ground here, from hidden hardware features to international intrigue. But before we wrap up, I think it's worth taking a step back and considering the bigger picture. What does Operation Triangulation tell us about the nature of cyber threats today?
Well, I think it really underscores the fact that we're dealing with a new breed of attacker. Operation Triangulation is a prime example of what's known as an Advanced Persistent Threat, or APT.
Okay, I've heard that term thrown around, but honestly, it sounds a bit like something out of a Tom Clancy novel. Break it down for me. What exactly is an APT and what makes them so different from your average hacker?
Right, so think of APTs as the elite special forces of the cyber world. They're highly skilled, well-resourced, and incredibly patient. Often they're state-sponsored, meaning they have the backing of a government. Their goals aren't about quick smash-and-grab data thefts. They're playing the long game, infiltrating systems and remaining undetected for months, even years, quietly gathering intelligence and achieving strategic objectives.
So it's almost like a digital version of Cold War espionage, except the battleground is now our devices and networks.
That's a great analogy. And in the case of Operation Triangulation, the attackers demonstrated all the hallmarks of an APT. They used multiple zero-day exploits, including that hidden hardware feature we discussed. And they operated under the radar for an extended period, potentially compromising sensitive information without anyone knowing.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. The researchers at Kaspersky did some incredible detective work to uncover this attack. How did they manage to piece together what had happened?
Well, they analyzed data from compromised iPhones, looking for any anomalies or unusual patterns. It was like piecing together a digital jigsaw puzzle. What they found was evidence of a complex infrastructure involving multiple servers and a variety of custom-built malicious tools. It was a meticulously planned and executed operation designed to leave as little trace as possible.
So it wasn't just some lone wolf hacker working out of their basement.
Not at all. This had all the signs of a sophisticated state-sponsored operation, The level of resources and expertise involved was significant.
It's a sobering thought. It seems like we're in a constant arms race when it comes to cybersecurity. As soon as we develop new defenses, the attackers find new ways to circumvent them.
Yeah, it's a perpetual cat and mouse game. And with the rapid pace of technological advancements, the threat landscape is constantly evolving.
So where does that leave us? What can we learn from Operation Triangulation, and how can we apply those lessons to protect ourselves in this increasingly complex digital world?
I think one of the most important takeaways is that we can't afford to be complacent. Even the most secure systems can be vulnerable. We need to adopt a mindset of continuous vigilance and proactive security.
That makes sense. It's not just about having the latest antivirus software anymore. It's about being aware of the risks, staying informed about emerging threats, and taking steps to mitigate those risks.
Exactly. And that includes things like enabling automatic updates,
Mm.
being cautious about the links we click and the attachments we open, and using strong, unique passwords for all our accounts.
It's also about thinking critically about the information we share online and being mindful of our digital footprint.
Absolutely.
Right.
We need to be thoughtful about what we post, what permissions we grant to apps, and how we manage our privacy settings.
In a way, it's about taking ownership of our own cybersecurity. We can't rely solely on technology or security companies to protect us. We need to be active participants in our own digital safety.
I couldn't agree more. Cybersecurity is everyone's responsibility. And the more informed and proactive we are, the better equipped we'll be to navigate this complex and ever-changing digital landscape.
Well said. And on that note, I think it's time to wrap up our deep dive into Operation Triangulation. It's been a fascinating and thought-provoking journey into the world of cyber espionage and the evolving nature of digital threats. We'll be sure to keep you updated on any new developments in this story. Until then, stay safe out there.